It says I don't have to be. But it's too much. Say that. You got nothing to do. Stay. Nothing to do. Hello. That's what we get between y'all. Welcome to our Gospel service here out of here for Lucas Talk. Today we gather on an important theme of the significance of registering to vote. As we reflect on our civic responsibilities, we can look to Jesus, who engage deeply with the world around him. He taught us to love our neighbors, teach others, and serve our communities, worshiping and loving God. We also draw inspiration from our illustrious alumnus, Representative John Lewis, a tireless advocate for civil rights and social justice. His unwavering commitment to the Voting Rights Act is a powerful reminder of many struggles to secure our right to vote. John Lewis once said, "The vote is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have." We also draw inspiration from SEAL, social justice, equity, advocacy, and leadership. Each component reflects our commitment to civic engagement, seeking to ensure fairness for all. Striving for justice and using our voices to speak up for those who may be marginalized. Voting is not just right, it's a responsibility that empowers that is on the Constitution. It's our opportunity to embody the principles of CIL and ensure that our voices are heard. As for worship, let's reflect on how we can actively engage our democracy and encourage one another to register to vote. Inspired by the teachings of Jesus, the legacy of John Lewis, to ensure the love, justice, and skill fills the world. Thank you for being here, and let us begin our service in prayer. If we all could bow our head in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, gracious God, we come before you, humbly with you, for our hearts full of gratitude and hope. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as a community, united in faith and purpose. We ask for your guidance as we reflect on the importance of our civic responsibility and the power of the voices. Which embrace the principles of our social justice, equality, and leadership. Help us to be agents of our change in our communities, standing up for those who are marginalized, advocating for a just society. As we prepare to engage the democratic process, we pray that you grant us wisdom and discernment. Help us to see the importance of registering to vote and using our voices to influence the future. May we remember that shift of our values and step toward justice. You are strengthen us, God, to love our neighbors and to act with compassion and merit. We ask that all of us in our service with silence and action. And it is in Jesus' mighty matchless name we pray. Amen. And thank you to our students, Mr. Daryl Hopkins and Mr. James Henry, for our worship tonight. Tonight, we're going to stay in the Christian God for our civic engagement. And I'm going to let you students know that some of your professors have agreed to offer some extra credit if you are actively involved tonight. Write a reflection on the speeches or the thoughts you hear tonight, and also with the presidential debate. So you might want to check with your professors because we do believe in skills, not just what we say, but it is also who we are, woven within our DNA. On the evening, we have some incredible guests tonight to
talks about the importance of being civically active. His wife is a native Nashville. She's a graduate Hillsborough High School. In her life, but it's rather long. She is that accomplished. And we're proud of her and her connection to Mary Baptist College. In 2020, Judge Bell was elected to General Sessions Court Judge, and she was in 2014 and 2022. So she knows something about voting and concepts. We're excited to have her. She really thought about could come and talk to us from a judicial point. She certainly lives out still. She has certain initiatives to restore reentry court for returning citizens. She has participated in creative care. She is also, she's got lots of housing and restorative missionary work programs. Judge Bell is really that lady, all right? She does good work. So if you know, and you can go break down. How parents would bring me up here for various different things, and I've been knowing Reverend Dr. Harris for most of my life. Do you agree with that? His son and I grew up together in Inroads and some other programs that we were doing here in Nashville growing up. But American Baptist College and this institution is near and dear to my heart and to my family as well. I'm very thankful to be here, very thankful to be one of your judges. The youngest judge still in Davidson County. I was 33 years old when I said I'm going to put my name on the ballot. And my parents said, you're going against the establishment, you're going against an incumbent, a two-time council member who's much older than you and has much more money than you. But we're going to follow your vision and we're going to get out there and work hard. So we were able to win that election, thank God. And when I won Channel 5 and the Tennessean wanted to know my statement, and I said, but God. Yeah. That the church said amen. I said, thank God for all things. And put exclamation point on there. That the church said amen. They said, don't ask me anything else. That's all that I need you to put in the paper. So then after that, I had no number of opportunities to go to a number of churches, universities, institutions, and talk more about my race and how we were able to make it. It is very, 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 very important that you are committed and that you're connected to community. You are community leaders. You're in school to become our leaders in pastoral and counseling services and universities of the like. And your voice matters. So when people listen to you, pray with you, counsel with you, they're trusting that you're giving them good guidance. And in trusting that you're giving them good guidance, you cannot forget the importance of voting. As our individual that started us out with the program today, and I don't know his name, I don't know where he is right now, but he did a wonderful job. He was talking about John R. Lewis, a former student that was here, but our former representative. And he fought hard for the right to vote. He was in Selma, Alabama, Bloody Sunday, fighting hard for the right to vote. Why do you think our nation doesn't want us to have the opportunity to vote? Because when we vote, we change things. Yeah. When we vote, the atmosphere changes, the environment changes, our opportunities change. When you vote, our vision, our opportunities to move agendas forward change. I was listening to President Biden's announcement a few years back today. I'm getting prepared for my class I teach this night on environmental justice and getting them ready to listen to the debate with Kamala Harris, our vice president, and our former number 44, to see how this debate is going to go tonight. But I want them to have a key moment to understand that environmental justice is very, very key. And I do have to leave, but I want to leave us knowing that when we do vote, we're able to able to drink clean water. We're also able to make sure that our communities aren't all the only communities that have issues with environmental justice. The president has the ability to sign executive orders, but it's not just about the presidential debate, it's about our local politics as well. My good friend trying to help individuals, landlords receive the rent through emergency rental assistance funds. And then the care court, that's also good trouble. Trying to have a diversion in court for individuals that are ages 18 to 30. When they make a mistake or they go through different decisions that they made that they shouldn't have a stamp on their record for the rest of their life. Very proud that over 25 participants have come through it through our pilot program, and that we've been able to dismiss their records, expunge their records, dismiss their charges, expunge their records, retire their cases, expunge their records, clean slate, get them a job, get housing, get education, and keep moving forward. But that's because of your vote. Your vote is key. So you have to get out and make sure. I see these t-shirts out here that Black voters matter. That's true. But you have to make sure that you're not just getting your one. When I went to the National Bar Association convention just a few weeks back with the NAACP in Las Vegas, the mission, the agenda is to make sure that not only do you vote, people that are unlikely voters or not frequent voters, to make sure that we have enough people to actually go vote. Your charge today is not to get 10 people you know, but 10 people you don't know. 10 people that are not registered, get them registered. There are a lot of voter registration drives that are happening all around our city. I know they're having some maybe even here on campus, hopefully. If not, let's get the NAACP to come up here and help y'all get people registered to vote. We're making sure that when you do go vote, that you're also holding the people that you put in office accountable and making sure that they're focusing on our agenda. Because if we're not focusing on our agenda, then we're always going to get left behind. Here. Environmental justice is one of the most important things for the Black community right now. Urban communities and our blighted communities are where our climate is being hurt the most. Is where I've heard it. President Biden said it, that our plight of our health with cancer because of the pollutants, because of the debris, construction debris, landfills, our pollution, our sanitation, our drinking clean water, breathing clean air. That's all about voting. And I know it doesn't sound like it's really happening, but Vice President Al Gore talked to us about climate change, 20 years ago? And I was like, what you talking about? Well, it's happening now, but it's happening more in our community first. Because we don't have enough advocates, we don't have enough infrastructure, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough people holding up the sign. But also, from back in the day, with the Fannie Lou Hamer, Thelma Harper, a few other people, they all took the mantle to lay down in the streets and said, over my dead body, will you bring another landfill to this community? And just a few weeks back, the Tennessee Titans were remodeling or revamping infrastructure for their community for the Titans, and they wanted to bring the debris back over here, right? And we had to fight hard for it not to come. So Bordeaux, in this community over here, in North Nashville, over right down the road, has always been where we're dealing with environmental justice issues. So I'm kind of more focused on that right now, but it is the agenda for our Black and brown. And then also restorative justice, making sure we have second chances, making sure that we're not over policing each other, over incarcerating each other, and making sure that we have an ability to help individuals restore their lives, restore their rights, and have a good quality of life that God has given to all of us. So I'll leave you with this. Do not believe that things are going to be okay if you don't get yourself up. You, one person, go vote, and then make sure you bring somebody with you. Okay? So November 5th is our day. We've got early voting a couple weeks before. I don't know the exact dates, but I know it's 2 weeks before November 5th. But let's make sure, I can't tell you who to vote for. I would love to tell you who to vote for. I would love to tell you what you focus on. I cannot do that as a judge, so sometimes I'm very limited in this. But whatever you do, please make sure that your life matters. Not just your Black life matters, but that your life does matter and you're doing something about it. Voting is the one key thing that helps us move all of our agendas forward. So thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm excited about what's yet to come with ABC, with your institution. Thank you for having this program today too, right at the cusp of what's happening. I know a lot of people in the room, I would start naming names and you'd be mad that I could say everybody, but I see a lot of familiar faces. But again, thank you. Good luck to you in your semester. Good luck to your leadership. And I hope that you get implemented into community and make a difference, and don't just check boxes. If you're checking boxes, make sure you vote. Make sure you're actually doing the right voting ones. Okay? All right, good luck. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Judge Bell. She's certainly connected to ABC. I know when she came for, she and her wife are in partners in our mental health and our um, so if though you all see the flyers and they just put up some banners about calling in our telehealth, that is an inception of her wife, Dr. Dorsha, and Judge Bell. Talk about a power couple. I guess they the real husband time. All right. All right. Our next guest is she is the CEO, or excuse me, the executive director of Organized Tennessee. She has over a decade experience in the public and private sectors. Her work in nonprofit management and community and political engagements has led to her involvement in organizing several political and issue-based campaigns in the state, local, and federal level. Nadira Freeman serves as the operations director in the 2018 Bredesen for U.S. Senate race and as an advisor for several Metro National City Council, School Board, and Mayor races. She currently serves on the Merge Tennessee Cabinet Leadership Board. And this doesn't say it, but she's also a Fisk guy, so she's pretty great. Uh, She is a soccer super fan and is the co-founder of the Mixtape, the National Soccer Club's first Black-led supporters group. Ms. Freeman is here to talk to us about the organization that she helped to start. It's called Organized Tennessee. We all give her a wonderful
Good evening. You know, use the church call and response. We got a little quiet down there. As Ms. Holliver said, my name is Nadira Freeman. I'm with Organized Tennessee. Organized Tennessee is a election protection, voter protection nonprofit here in the state. We work statewide just to make sure that everybody has access to the ballot. As we'll talk about in a second, that's work that we have to do, unfortunately, because we live in a state that goes up above and beyond the call of suppressing the vote, disenfranchising people from the vote. There are almost 500,000 people who aren't able to vote in Tennessee due to some of the most draconian laws in the nation around how we give folks their rights or make people eligible to vote. So in Tennessee specifically, we do have to be vigilant because that we have lawmakers who are making it hard. On top of making it hard, like double down and triple down is what I always say. And so I don't know if you guys saw this, but the New York Times actually just did a little piece on how hard it is to actually vote in Tennessee. And it's really impactful. So I would just say take a quick Google on that. Really informative. And then also with these laws that we have, this is why it's important to vote because voting gives you some controls as to who is going to be sitting at the decision making table. And so if we can go ahead and hit the slides, we'll kind of walk through like why is it important to engage in the voting process just in general, and then speak specifically about some of the dates that are coming up. As Judge Bell said, we are in electoral season all year. Actually, we've been voting since the time and our early voting will be starting in October and election days on November 5th. Okay, so we're on a mission. Again, as Judge Bell said, this is not just about you. Okay, and so as some great prophets out of the state of Georgia once said, it's me and you, your mama and your cousins too. And that's the type of mission that we're on right now. We need all of our people. We have to be able to get people to understand that we live in this like democratic republic and the experiment of a democracy literally set up to work because everybody's engaging. So if you're not engaging, the process can't even work the way it's intended to work. And that's really important because people will ask, well, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It doesn't count. It does. And if you feel that way, it's because of the lies that you've been told. And so we know that change happens when everybody's engaged, and that's why they work so hard to disenfranchise folks and like just make it harder. And so Tennessee, you'll see some statistics up here. We rank at the bottom of the nation when it comes to voter registration, when it comes to voter turnout, and when it comes to the ease of voting. And so one of the things specifically for folks who look like you, your age demographic, these youthful, beautiful faces with all your energy, is that nationally in the midterm in 2022, the voting rates for young adults went up. Unfortunately, in Tennessee, we did not see that same trend happen. So we actually fell below the margin of the national average for young adult and youth voter turnout. So we do have a lot of work to do, and that's all y'all. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna get our people, but we need y'all to be engaged and get your people too. So next slide. When we look at like the fight for the right, the fight for franchisement, everybody's like, well, why we gotta keep fighting? Why we gotta keep fighting? It is what it is. It is what it is. And so from the inception of the concept that we're gonna go vote for people, it has been a fight that people have had to buy into to be able to get access to the ballot. So quick timeline, we start around the 1700s, and it's white men who own land who can vote. That's it. And I am a in a 501c3 agency, but what I can say is when you hear certain messaging, let's connect the dots. So when we're saying things like make America great again, what period are we talking about? And who had access to what during those times? And so if we're saying we want to go back to a time when no one had access to the ballot other than white men, then that's probably not the thing that you feel most aligned with, right? So that's why it's important to understand what candidates are saying, what the issues are, so that you can make the best decisions as to what pertains to you and your community. So we get a little further in time, 1800s, Black men are granted, I mean, air granted, because this is a policy that we have, but we don't see that enacted, right? The right to vote. In the 1920s, now we get to the place where women can vote. We move up a little bit to 1960s, and this is where, again, you guys are all probably very familiar with the voting rights efforts that took place, especially where we're talking about living in the South, that Black people could have access to the ballot because, again, the systems, the government was not holding up its end of the bargain to let everyone have equitable access. So we move up a little further. It's not until the 1970s that folks your age are able to vote. So it's 1971 when folks 18 and up can vote. And again, these are all fights. No one is giving this out like you get a treat, you get a treat, you get a treat. People are having to fight for their right to vote. In 1975, we see an extension or expansion of the Voting Rights Act to then be able to protect people who are not English speakers. Then in like early 80s, you have some adjustments that were made in order to be able to accommodate people with disabilities and the elderly. And now at this point, I'm bored. Okay, so this is within my lifetime. And then in 19 transformational happened in the nation, and that was the National Voter Registration Act. And the one thing I want to point out about this is when you do make it easier for people to vote, people buy in. So with that, that was the law that said when you go get your driver's license, you can also register to vote. And that people need to be able to do a mail-in application to get a ballot. And agencies that do public service also need to be able to register people to vote. That policy, this is why policies are important. After they passed that policy, 30 million Americans, 30 million people registered to vote and or updated their voter registration status. So now we're again talking about why are people making it hard to vote versus, letting everybody vote. It's because when there's accessibility, people are going to do it. And so then the question is, why don't they want people to vote? So then when we look a little further, we were making some good strides. We're trying to give people access. We get to 2013, and that was just a couple of years ago. And the U.S. Supreme Court gutted a big portion of the Voting Rights Act that covered the pre-clearance. And so very briefly, what that is that in states, kind of like Tennessee, a lot of them are going to be your southern states, in order for them to change the voting laws, it had to go to the federal level. And the Department of Justice had to approve it. Well, the Supreme Court said, y'all ain't gotta do that no more. So states, you can make the decisions as to how people, that live there can vote and cannot vote. And so immediately after that happened, like literally within 60 days, you had states that were coming in with very, 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 very aggressive and abrasive laws that were disenfranchising specifically Black people and prohibiting them from voting. You talk about voting rights now, what can be said is that Black people have less protections to vote in 2024 than they did in 1970. And that's crazy. And we do need to make sure that we're all engaged because now we have to fight back for the things that we already had at one point in time. Next slide. Oh, okay. So John Lewis. So there is a bill that passed the House in 2021, and it is called the John Lewis Act, or the Freedom to Vote Act. And so what that would do is revitalize the Voter Registration Act, or the Voting Rights Act from 1965. And so in speaking of John Lewis, of course, we can't be at ABC or really anywhere in Nashville for that matter and not just pay homage to the late great. And so, known as the boy from Troy, but also a giant in the movement, some of the things that we've already talked about is that yes, that he was leading the demonstration in Alabama with the march from Selma to Montgomery. But before that, he came to Nashville to come to ABC. And at that time, it was called American Baptist Theological Seminary. So, being on these hollow grounds, again, we just pay homage, but we also take the charge and the challenge seriously, that there's still work to do. And in order to honor the legacy, we must do our part. And so while he was here, he got engaged. He didn't sit on the sidelines and just wait for things to happen or wait for things to get better. So he was involved in organizing the sit-ins that happened downtown, which helped to integrate restaurants and businesses, retail, hospitality in the city of Nashville. He was an organizer for the Freedom Rides in 1961. In 1963, he was the chairman of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And in that role, he was influential in planning the March on Washington. And so again, he's still a young man, he's y'all's age. And then he was the youngest speaker that day during the march. And so he did graduate from Fisk. And he was elected to Congress and he served. He served his state, he served his constituents, but he also served his country. He served all of us. And again, did get honored in 2011 with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So again, we pay homage, honor. And so now we go to the next slide, why you? So we talked about the history. We're here, it's 2024, what we doing? We talked about is me, you, your mama, cousins too, but if it wasn't enough on the historical context, let's talk about this y'all's age demographic. So post 2022, less than 60% of potential voters that are 18 to 24 were registered to vote. So again, if you look around and do the ratios in here, that means some of y'all are not registered to vote. And we're gonna work on that tonight too. Also, when we look at 2024, this is a trend that y'all probably don't understand the importance of, but doing campaign work, doing political work, one of the things that would always be said is young people don't really matter. They don't come out and vote. That's what they say. With this year and the way the balance is working, there are so many of you guys that this will be one of the first times that y'all's generation is expected to cast as many ballots as baby boomers. And so that's powerful because it does change the tide. It changes how politics actually work, that you guys cannot continue to be ignored. So the more that you participate, the more that you voice, the more that you show up, then the more people have to listen to what you're saying. They have to get some understanding perspective on your ideals, your ideologies, your theology, and what your communities need to look like. So we're doing all of it. Next slide. Because we want to see a better democracy. So Tennessee also, I'm sorry, I don't have no better news about our statistics, but Tennessee is also ranked the least democratic state in the nation. And so you kind of can understand that if you pay attention to the news at all during the legislative session where our policymakers are pushing policies out that are not reflective of the will of the people. And this is not a partisan argument. I don't mean because Black people don't like it or I'm saying Asian people don't like it. Democrats don't like it, Republicans don't like it. Across the board, red, green, yellow, 222, 122. The decisions that are being made about how we live our lives in Tennessee is not reflective of the general population's opinion on how they want to live their lives in Tennessee. And so that's again why we need all of our people. And so specifically for young people, you guys have fresh energy. You guys do have fresh ideas. We need to infuse that into what we're doing in order to have a better, more sustainable future. The judge talked about environmental justice. That's a real thing. We're gonna have to breathe this air till there's, you know what I'm saying, the new kingdom comes. And so we can't get more of that. You know what I'm saying? The land that we walk on, that's a finite resource. These are the things that matter. And we do need you guys to be like at these tables, having these conversations, coming up with policies around how do we create a better world for the next generation than the one that we inherited ourselves. Next slide. So there are a couple of benefits. Representation, again, you having a say in who's going to be making the decisions around what happens in your communities, the policy impact, we already hit on that. Social change. If you don't like everything that you see, if it's not vibes, that's a call to action. Accountability. Once you vote, that's not the last part of the process. When you're voting, it's kind of like you're hiring somebody. And so once you get hired, you got a manager that check in on you every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Or once you get accepted to school, you're gonna have to do a couple assignments and you need to like go check in with your professor. It's the same thing. So once you vote, still you gotta stay a little engaged. Pay attention to what's going on. And then lastly, because we're trying to protect our rights. Not only protect them, now we just fighting for our rights. And so with the season that we're in now, voter registration ends in the state of Tennessee on October 7th. And when I tell you September is passing by very quickly, like we're already almost halfway through this month. So we need everybody to get registered to vote. If you feel like you might have registered, you can check your voter registration status. If you moved, you can change your address, all that good stuff. We have until October 7th to get you registered. And then if in Tennessee and you like weren't gonna be here, you're going away, you can request absentee ballot. And so there's a deadline on that too. And then early voting starts on October 16th and runs through October 31st. So that is one good thing about the state of Tennessee. We'll give credit where credit is due that we do have a 2-week early voting period. It's convenient to vote during early voting because you can vote at any of the polling precincts that are open. And there are usually at least 10 or 12 of them. The difference between voting early and voting on election day is that on election day, you can only vote at the polling precinct that you are registered by your residential address. So if you came to school on election day, you were like, oh, I'm not gonna have time to make it all the way back to Antioch, if you live in Antioch. You can't just pull up, you know what I'm saying, at the school, up the street and go vote. Whereas early voting, any post that says vote here, you can go and vote and you have no problems. And then the eligibility things that you have to, you know, abide by in order to be able to vote, be a citizen, be over 18. If you be a resident of the state of Tennessee, if you do have felonies, it gets a little nuanced. It depends on the crime and the date. So we have some resources around that if that's something that you're concerned about. And then the other thing to think about and know in Tennessee is that if you're not from here and you register to vote here, that's not enough. There's one other step. And that is that you have to get a Tennessee issued ID and or if you have a Tennessee driver's license, that will suffice. Or if you have a passport or any other government issued identification, that works. But if you're from Michigan and you register to vote here and you do not have one of those IDs, they will tell you you cannot vote. So voter registration is one step, but then in Tennessee, you do have to make sure you have one of the valid forms of ID in order to be able to be processed as a voter. And remember we talked about how Tennessee makes it hard for people to vote? This is one of those things. This is a voter suppressive tactic. And it was really done to make it harder for college students to vote. That was the whole intention behind that policy. So we want to make sure that you're aware of it. Again, you go to the DMV, you don't have to necessarily get the license. As long as it's the Tennessee issued ID, you're fine. Next slide. So here's our take action moment. So we made it super convenient for y'all, and it looks like some people are already on their phones. So all you have to do is take your phone and you scan the QR code right here, and it's going to take you to the Secretary of State's website where you can register to vote. You can update your voter registration information if you need to. You can find your polling location, and then it has some additional resources for you as well. So everybody, I didn't see everybody pull up their phone yet, but we're gonna give y'all a couple seconds to get to the website. And again, we want you to do it now because we're running out of time. This is a finite amount of time that we have to be able to get registered. And then, next slide. Once you're registered, we encourage people to make a voting plan. So what happens a lot of times is people be like, "Oh, I forgot to vote. Oh, that's so sad." Well, let's like make sure that that doesn't happen. What's the preventative action? We like to be solutions oriented over here. So there's this thing called a voting plan, and that's literally you sit down and we have some templates here. I was given from Ms. Tolliver, where you just pick a date. Look at your calendar. You can say, okay, I'm gonna go at this time. Usually, me, my sisters, and my daughter and my niece will go vote together, and then we'll go do brunch afterwards because we make it a thing. And so then that leads to who are you going to vote with? Don't go vote by yourself. That's boring. What's that? Where are your people, right? So go with your friends or go with some family members and really like make it a thing, right? Because it's for the culture. It's fine. So we're gonna make our voting plans where we choose our date, time, location. We identify who we're going with. If you do need rides to the polls, we can help coordinate that as well. Again, there's some other things to think about. If you need childcare, you can take your kids with you, but you know, if you don't want to, who's gonna keep the kids while you want to vote? If you're working, like, you know, if your work schedule kind of has you working a lot and you might need to take time off of work, that is actually allowed under the law. In order to be able to go vote, your employer is supposed to give you some time off. So you can choose the date, time, let them know that that's what you got going on, and get to the polls. Lastly, so how people are disenfranchised. Again, we just never really know what to expect sometimes. So there is a national election protection hotline just to be a resource for folks who are running into issues, trying to cast a ballot, and or if you have any general questions. If you need to know where you're going to go vote, you can't remember the other website. You can call the 1-866 Our Vote National Election Protection Hotline. And so, as the lead election protection organization in the state, Tennessee, Organized Tennessee partners with the Lawyers Committee that powers this hotline. And so, we manage the calls that come in through the hotline for the state of Tennessee. And so, we also recruit, we train and credential people to be poll observers. So, in talking about some extra credit, this could be another opportunity where if you want to go beyond the civic engagement of just voting, you can be a poll observer or poll monitor, and that means you sit inside of the polling precinct during the day and you just make sure everybody's able to vote. And if there's some indiscrepancies going on, you write a little report about it. We get to addressing it because we're trying to make sure that no one is getting turned away unnecessarily from the ballot. And so that's another opportunity if you're interested. We'll get you connected there, but we really want people to know, like, if you have any trouble, there's a resource for you. It's 1-866 Our Vote. We can say it all together. Here's the call and response I didn't get earlier. So 1-866 Our Vote. 1-866 Our Vote. I think you guys got it. Yeah. So remember that. Also share that information with your friends, family, co-workers, peers, because that's for anybody and everybody who needs some resource or help during their voting experience. That brings us to the end of this presentation. Feel free to follow us since you guys have your phones at Organized Tennessee, IG and Organized TN on Facebook and Twitter. We try to provide resources to people, relevant information. Again, we know people are busy and everybody's not a policy wonk, so we do some of the heavy lifting for you, just so again you can just stay informed and aware about what's going on. And so we do encourage everybody to again make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you have the right ID. Go vote between October 16th and 30th or 31st. And if you didn't make that happen, you have the one last chance on November 5th. And so we want to be able to say that ABC is 100% voting body. That's the goal.
Yes.
And so at Organized Tennessee, we have a whole little HBCU campaign working. So we're working with some of the other HBCUs across the state because we know our representation is important. Our votes matter. And so we want to make sure there's no reason why none of our folks are participating in this process.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I hope you all are picking your voting buddies now, deciding who you're going with. Who's going with me? All right, we'll get some chicken sun after we go, okay?
So the debate is tonight. It starts at 8 o'clock. If y'all didn't want to watch it by yourself, there are a couple of watch party options. So you can pull up at Bag Ladies on Buchanan or at Rhythm and Spice on Meharry. They're gonna have the debate on. There'll be some other folks in there. It's not a formal program, but again, it's just culture. Let's do it all together.
Thank you. And I learned her uncle, Reverend Harris from Westwood, is an alum of our fine institution. Dean Green, is there anything we need to do before? All right. All right. All right. Dr. Harris, is there anything you?
Thank you so much for that education. Thank you so much for how this voting time season is so critical to the future. And to every student, your vote, say your vote, matters. The power of one vote. In 2000, George Bush and Al Gore, the election was so close. You remember the chant? The people who could have made a difference in that vote that did not vote, but if they had voted, whatever their choice would have been, would have made a difference in what history would have been in that presidential election. And I want to encourage each of you, if you're not registered to vote, I think we have information here this afternoon as to how you should do that. The people who could decide the shape of history moving forward are the persons, young people on college campus, but also the persons who are poor and need access to voting and need us to help encourage them on the process of registering to vote by October when? The 7th. Can you say October 7th? Sorry. I have a grandson at Tennessee State University from Ohio. I've got to get him set up so that he can use his ID from Cincinnati, his passport. Thank you for that education so that I would know how to help him. I sent the QR code, download and send it right to him so that he can know what he can do in order to be ready to vote on November 5th. Isn't that important?
Yeah.
Every vote, what? Every vote matters. It is your power to change and understand what change might mean so that we can have democracy flourish for all. You mentioned John Lewis several times and his efforts in the 1965 Voters' Rights Act and how the new John Lewis Voters' Rights Act is trying to return strength and support and access and to deal with voter suppression. In the new John Lewis Voters' Rights Act, every student, I hope you look at that act, look at what it says and why it's so important for that Voters' Rights Act to be passed and affirmed. Here we have a chance. So we have a chance to change history and the way history will be shaped in the next 30 years. This is a vote of a lifetime. It's not only about presidential choices before us, but the choices on the down ballot, local city government, up and down the ballot, your vote counts. So thank you so much for this, and we're ready to have our watch parties tonight for the debate. And we cannot tell you who to vote for and will not tell you who to vote for. What's on the ballot, as it has been said by my friend Otis Moss in Chicago, is democracy. What's on the ballot is your future. What's on the ballot is how people will have access to food, how people will have freedom over their bodies and their decisions about their bodies. What's on the ballot is how we can engage civically to change those systems that we feel work against the communities that we love. Thank you so much, and I'm excited. I'm going to vote this time. I voted in every election, but certainly I'm not going to miss this one. Have your voting plan, and she said, take somebody with you. I want to take Miles Jackson, my grandson, with me, and anybody else who wants to come along. But we have an opportunity, and I'm so excited about our SGA, Aaron Ford back there. And Ford, we're gonna get it going on, right? Everybody on campus is gonna what? Vote. We're gonna make sure every student on our campus is registered to vote. For the Aaron Ford? Vote. There you go.